Welcome back! Today with Playing God, the game of arting, I'll be showing you how to draw Wendy from Don't Starve, and Abigail from Don't Starve, and a hound from Don't Starve. Screw it, let's just throw in a fire pit too. And a ground plane. Perfect. So yeah, Don't Starve was one of my favorite games, and somebody asked me to draw a character from it, and I decided to go all the way out with my favorite morbid child and her dead sister. Let's have fun! Now, I have multiple characters in this sketch. Be sure to put each one on their own layer, okay? You'll see why later. Now, start with the tilt of the shoulders for Wendy. It's a 50-50 chance if I start with head or shoulders, usually. I think at this point it's becoming more shoulders when I do full body on the computer. Move on to the action lines, and notice how I'm building off my reference from the skeleton up. Basically, everything in the sketch will end up moving by the end of it, because my reference is for a grown woman and Wendy here is stylized. And probably a kid. I don't have very much to say, to be honest. You build your character following reference. Keep in mind that most of your lines should accent your action. Her hair bends just a little to follow the movement of her body. Flub around with your sketch as much as you want, distorting and transforming things. This is a stage you get complete freedom over construction. Hound, however, was annoying. In-game, they're even more stylized than Wendy. First time I played, I screeched at what I thought were boars as they came around to beat the crap out of me. I don't want to go with that species ambiguous beast, so I give it a more defined head. Sharp, jagged teeth because it's got that dangerous spiky maw. Lots and lots of back fluff to accentuate those hackles. Huge ass paws, big fluffy tail, tiny evil eyes. Not quite in that order, but there's some revisiting and re-editing to do. Again, messing around with proportions until I like how imposing it can be. Abigail was easy. She's a ghost, a blob, with a flower on her head. Bloop. Now, we're moving into staging. This is what happens when we have multiple characters and a setting. We have to get these people to fit in relation to each other. This is why I said we need to put them on each of their own layers. You just shuffle them around with the move tool. Make your canvas bigger, wider for me in this case. What you want to do is stage your subjects in a way that makes your viewer's eyes travel over the entire piece. Just like Jinx, this is supposed to be interesting all the way around. Our focal point, which is what we're supposed to look at most, is Wendy. Then move on a little over to Abigail, then over to the Hound. Follow the rules of third, which state that your focus should be on one of the thirds of the piece. This is why Wendy is not in the middle. This is why none of the characters are in the middle. They're all slightly off to the side. Now that we've done all this, you see how empty it looks in the space below the Hound? To fix it, add something. Something small, not to attract attention, just to exist there, to balance this piece. I went with the fire pit because that's small and easy and not distracting. Then we move on to lines. Lines are, again, something I really don't have that much to say about. In this installment of Playing God, you'll notice something a little interesting. These lines are wobbly. Like, really wobbly. This line quality is terrible. You've noticed my stabilizer? It's horrifically low. Why? Because I'm making an atmosphere. Don't Starve has a very specific aesthetic, one that smooth lines would just fail to convey. Does this work in every piece? No. It all depends on the mood you want to set, and your style. So trace on a low layer with your ink pen on, well, I'm going to say a low stabilizer, but whatever one you like. I ain't the boss of you. But here I'm going to time skip a little to the next interesting part of this piece, the line weight. What was that? I already said something about line weight a few episodes ago? Well, I'm saying something new. It's just, you see what I'm doing? Tracing Wendy, carefully, on a new layer, so she's got that bold outline. The bold outline makes her come forward. Thicker lines push objects towards us in space, thinner lines push them back. I don't put it under her feet though, because you want to ground that on a plane. If you put it under her feet, it would make her float, like you just kinda stuck her on there. Repeat this process on Abigail and the Hound, and even the fireplace, to establish how close or far away they are. Since Wendy's closest, she'll have the thickest lines. Then Abigail, second closest. Then the Hound. Hound should have the thinnest lines. Now, some more tie skipping. Lines are done. What's next? Flats. Done. Then shading. My light source is Abigail herself when she's in a rage. That gives off a red light, making complementary shadows. What's the complement of red? Green. Green shadows everywhere. I filled in the characters on a new layer and carved out the shadows with the watercolor tool. I do prefer the airbrush myself, but watercolor fit more with Don't Starve's aesthetic. The airbrush just looked way too soft and comforting. There's still some messing around to be done when I finish this. The shadows could be pushed darker or lighter depending. Just play around with it for a while until you feel like you're comfortable. And, I said I would talk about the glowy eyes. I am a sucker for glowing eyes. They're my favorite, and they're really easy to do. First, you take the color of your desired glow, you smear it over the eyes. Then you add some white in the middle. You blend it with the blur tool as if your life depended on it. Lower the opacity, take this layer and make it a luminosity and shade layer. This works magic and it looks like the eyes are now intensely glowing at you. Now, the background. Guess what, guys? We're not doing dots. To prepare, expand your canvas again. Then start messing around with your ground plane. Squish, stretch, scrawl, just make something that they're standing on. I'm going to turn this into a chunk of ground, so afterwards you want to make some jagged stones underneath. You need help making these jagged stones underneath? You can make some guides on a line work layer with the line vector tool, then you trace organically. This saves lives. The process of flats, shading, etc. are all the same here as with the characters. And don't forget to ground your characters on this plane. They need cast shadows. If they're entirely in shadow anyway, don't worry about it, but if not, they will throw a shadow onto the ground and you're going to want to put that down. Now just do some final touch-ups, sign your name. Yes, that is my signature, by the way, the YBK. It stands for Your Bloodthirsty Kitten, and yes, I know that sounds a little silly. It's the username I go by everywhere else, and somehow it resonates more than Ren Sawyer, which is the name I use everywhere else. Then you take it into Photoshop to crop and just fix up just a tiny bit if you have anything else you need, and that's all. You're done. And we're done. That's all for this week. Next week, Tori will be back with Nathan Drake. You asked for him. Don't forget to leave us comments about who or what we should draw next. Have a good day, or night, or just a good time. Have a good whenever. Bye-bye!